The text arrived while my name was still folded inside the graduation program. I was sitting under the bright May sun at Stanford, surrounded by red gowns, proud families, flashing phones, and people who had waited years to hear their names called. My cap kept sliding forward. My hands were sweating around the edge of my diploma folder. 6 years of research, sleepless nights, rejected papers, teaching labs, debugging code until sunrise, and defending a dissertation that nearly broke me were finally behind me. Then my phone buzzed. Dad. For one foolish second, I thought it might say, "We're proud of you." Instead, the message sat there like a stone in my chest. "Your mother and I have talked. After today, don't expect any more help from us. You're 28. It's time to grow up and stand on your own feet." I read it once. Then again. Around me, parents were crying into tissues. Brothers were shouting names from the stands. A little girl waved flowers at her sister across the aisle. Somewhere behind me, a father yelled, "That's my son." I looked down at my phone and felt my day shrink into one sentence. They had chosen my graduation day to cut me off. Not that there was anything left to cut. I had not taken money from my parents in years. I paid my rent through research grants. I taught undergraduate classes for extra income. I lived in a small apartment with second-hand furniture and ate more instant noodles than I would ever admit in public. During the worst months, I worked through fevers because missing 1 week could delay a project by 6 months. But my parents had never seen that. To them, I was still Alexander Bennett, the daughter who had stayed in school too long, chosen computers over real life, and wasted her 20s chasing what Dad called academic smoke. My phone buzzed again. "Mom. Your father is right, sweetheart. This is for your own good. You need the real world now." Sweetheart. That word hurt more than the rest. Jessica, my friend from the lab, leaned closer. Her tassel brushed my shoulder. "Alex," she whispered, "you look sick." I handed her the phone without speaking. She read both messages. Her face changed slowly, like she was trying to understand a language she hated. "Today," she said. "They sent this today?" I took the phone back. "They like timing their lessons. But you're graduating with a PhD. To them, that's the problem." Jessica looked toward the crowd. "Are they here?" I nodded. Somewhere in those packed stands, my parents were sitting like judges. My father probably had his arms crossed. My mother was likely holding her purse in her lap, wearing the careful smile she used when she wanted strangers to believe we were a normal, proud family. I tried not to look for them. The announcer's voice rolled across the stadium, calling one name after another. Each graduate stood, walked, smiled, shook hands, posed for a photo, and returned to applause. I had imagined this moment for years. I thought I would feel relief. Maybe pride. Maybe peace. Instead, all I could think about was the first time Dad told me my life had no direction. It had been at a Christmas dinner 2 years earlier. I had tried to explain my research in machine learning, how my team had built a system that could detect patterns in damaged images better than existing models. I was excited. My paper had just been accepted. A major company had asked to license part of the method. Dad did not even let me finish. "Alexandra," he said, cutting into his turkey, "normal people do not get paid to play with theories forever." My mother touched my arm and smiled sadly, as if I was embarrassing myself. "Your father just wants you secure," she said. "A stable job. A husband. A life that makes sense. A life that makes sense." I stopped bringing my work home after that. I stopped telling them when my research was cited. I stopped mentioning investors. I stopped explaining why I was always tired, why I missed birthdays, why my laptop traveled with me like another limb. When Spectrum Analytics began growing faster than anyone expected, I kept that quiet too. At first, secrecy was protection. Then it became habit. Then it became easier than begging my own parents to believe I knew what I was doing. Dr. Alexander Bennett. My name struck the air. Jessica squeezed my wrist. Go, she whispered. This is yours. I stood too quickly. The world tilted for half a second, then steadied. I walked across the stage with my phone still burning in my pocket and the whole stadium blurred at the edges. The dean smiled. The diploma touched my hand. Cameras clicked. I should have heard applause. Instead, I heard my father's voice from years of dinners and phone calls. Be realistic. Stop hiding in school. You cannot build a life from computers. I crossed the stage anyway. I had spent 6 years learning how to make machines recognize what people missed. Faces in shadows. Patterns inside chaos. Truth under damaged data. But somehow, I still could not make my parents see me. When I returned to my seat, Jessica smiled like she was trying to hold me together with her eyes. You did it, she said. I nodded, but before I could answer, my phone rang. The name on the screen made my breath catch. David Chin. Most people at Stanford knew David as an alumnus who sometimes donated to tech fellowships. I knew him as the chief financial officer of Spectrum Analytics, the company I had founded in the second year of my PhD with a grant, a borrowed conference room, and 3 people who believed in an algorithm before anyone else did. David knew I was at graduation. David never called during something important unless something more important had happened. I lowered my voice and answered. David, I'm in the middle of the ceremony. I know, he said quickly. I'm sorry. I would not call if this could wait. My heart began to beat harder. What happened? There was a pause, but not the bad kind. I could hear shouting in the background. Phones ringing. Someone laughing like they had just survived a storm. The IPO opened 15 minutes ago. I closed my eyes. The IPO. 8 months of filings, meetings, forecasts, legal reviews, investor questions, and sleepless nights. We had delayed twice. The final approval had come through the week before my defense, and I had been so buried in dissertation revisions that the launch date had felt like something happening to another person. And? I asked. David exhaled hard. We priced above range. Jessica leaned toward me, watching my face. At what? I whispered. 28. That's good. Alex, he said, voice tight with excitement, we opened at 47. My hand tightened around the phone. For a moment, the entire stadium seemed to drop away. David kept going. We're already trading above 50. The valuation is past $6 billion. I stared straight ahead. A professor was handing another graduate a diploma. A mother in the front row was crying. Somewhere, someone cheered. I could not move. Alex? David said. Are you there? I swallowed. 6 billion? Jessica's eyes widened. David laughed once, almost in disbelief. More than 6. And moving. You did it. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. Say that quietly. I am trying. But half of Wall Street is not. The story is everywhere. Business channels are calling it the strongest tech debut in years. My mouth went dry. For years, I had lived two lives. At Stanford, I was the quiet PhD candidate who wore the same gray hoodie 3 days in a row and forgot to eat when experiments worked. At Spectrum, I was the founder who approved hiring plans at midnight, negotiated contracts after teaching classes, and reviewed product models from hospital waiting rooms, airport floors, and once from the hallway outside my qualifying exam. Both lives were real. But only one had been visible to my parents. How public is it? I asked. Very, David said. CNBC wants you. Bloomberg wants you. Fortune is asking for a profile. Maria is handling the flood. David, I'm still sitting with graduates. I know. I just needed you to hear it from me first. I glanced around. A few people nearby were looking at me now. Not many. Just enough to remind me that words like IPO and billion did not stay quiet in public spaces. Jessica mouthed, "Billion?" I gave the smallest nod. She covered her mouth. Then I saw my parents. They were coming down the stadium steps. My mother walked first, one hand gripping the rail, the other holding her purse tight against her side. My father followed a few steps behind, phone in hand, jaw set in the hard line he wore before giving advice no one asked for. They were not smiling. They were not carrying flowers. They were coming to finish the lesson. David, I said softly, I need to call you back. One more thing, he said. My parents moved closer, weaving through families. Dad looked annoyed by the crowd, as if my graduation had become an inconvenience. What? I asked. The Pentagon contract cleared press review this morning. Microsoft's license announcement goes live in an hour. And Maria says the university knows about the donation now. I shut my eyes again. Of all days. Which donation? The Computer Science Scholarship Fund. They are connecting it to the IPO story. I looked down at my gown, at the red fabric lying over my knees. Beneath it, my phone felt heavier than the diploma. David, stop talking. He paused. I lowered my voice. My parents are here. Another pause. Then David spoke carefully. Do they know? I watched my father step over a row of seats, irritation clear on his face. No, I said. They think I'm unemployed. David made a sound that was not quite a laugh. Then today is going to be interesting. I ended the call before I could lose my nerve. Jessica stared at me. Alex, she whispered, your company is worth $6 billion? Apparently. And your parents don't know you have a company? Not exactly. What does not exactly mean? It means every time I tried to tell them, they told me to grow up. Her expression softened. Then my mother reached our row. Alexandra, she said, using the full version of my name like a handle she could pull me by. We need to talk. Dad stopped beside her, still holding his phone. I hope you read our messages, he said. This is not punishment. It is responsibility. The words landed in the small space between us. Jessica went still. A graduate behind me turned his head. I stood slowly, diploma in one hand, phone in the other. The ceremony continued around us, but our row seemed to quiet. I read them, I said. Dad nodded, pleased that I was calm enough to be taught. Good. Then you understand. Your mother and I love you, but we cannot keep supporting this fantasy. You are 28 years old. A doctorate is nice, but now you need a real job, a real income, real plans. My mother's voice softened in that way that always made judgment sound like concern. We only want you to stop struggling, sweetheart. I looked at her. Struggling. Last month, I had signed payroll for 300 employees. 2 weeks ago, I had approved expansion into Austin. 3 days before my dissertation defense, I had spent 40 minutes on the phone with the federal security team discussing deployment timelines. But in my mother's eyes, I was still a tired student who needed rescuing from herself. I'm not asking you for money, I said. Dad gave a short breath. That is not the point. The point is attitude. You have always acted like rules do not apply to you. Like hard work means whatever you want it to mean. You cannot live on ideas forever. My phone buzzed again. Maria Santos. Head of Public Relations. I stared at the screen. If David was careful, Maria was not. She called only when the outside world had started moving too fast. Dad noticed the name. Are you going to answer that, or can you give your parents 5 minutes of respect? I looked at him, then answered. Maria, I can't really talk. Her voice rushed through the speaker before I could lower the volume. Alex, congratulations. Every major business outlet is asking for you. The IPO is the lead story. The Stanford angle is exploding. Dad's face changed, but only slightly. Confusion first. Then suspicion. I took the phone off my ear and tried to turn the volume down. Maria continued, unaware. The headline is everywhere already. Stanford PhD founder becomes tech billionaire on graduation day. We need a statement before the market closes. Jessica froze. My mother's purse slipped lower in her hand. Dad looked at my phone like it had spoken in a foreign language. I could have hung up. I almost did. Years of habit told me to protect them from embarrassment, to shrink the truth, to make my life easier for them to understand. But then I thought of the text they sent while I sat in a graduation gown. I thought of every dinner where my dreams were treated like delays. I thought of every time I had helped quietly and still been called irresponsible. So I did not hang up. I simply lowered the phone and let Maria's voice fill the space between us. Spectrum Analytics is currently valued above $6.2 billion, she said. Your ownership stake is being reported around 73%. We're confirming numbers, but Forbes is already preparing coverage. Dad's hand loosened. His phone dropped. It hit the concrete step with a sharp crack that made 2 people turn around. Maria kept talking. Also, the Pentagon contract and Microsoft license are being bundled into the coverage. The university is asking whether they can announce the scholarship fund tonight. No one spoke. Not Jessica. Not my mother. Not my father. For the first time in my life, both of my parents looked at me without a prepared opinion. I lifted the phone back to my ear. Maria, I said, my voice calm somehow, send me the statement draft. No interviews until after the ceremony. Understood, she said. And Alex? Yes? You built something extraordinary. I ended the call. The stadium noise came back in pieces. Applause. Names. Camera shutters. Laughter from families who had no idea that one row near the aisle had just split open. Dad bent slowly and picked up his cracked phone. He did not look at the screen. He looked at me. Alexandra, he said, but his voice had lost its edge. What is spectrum analytics? I held my diploma against my chest. Behind him, people were already whispering. Someone had searched my name. Another phone screen glowed with a headline I could not read from where I stood. My mother's eyes moved from my face to my gown, then to the phone in my hand, as if the truth might be hiding in one of them. I took a breath. And for the first time that day, I did not feel small. It's my company, I said quietly. Dad stared. Mom's lips parted, but no words came. A notification lit up my screen. Market cap crosses 7 billion. Jessica saw it over my shoulder. Her whisper was almost silent. Alex. My parents saw it too. And the lesson they had come to teach me died right there in the aisle. For a moment, my father only stared at the screen. $7 billion. The number glowed there, cold and unreal, while the announcer kept calling graduates to the stage as if the world had not shifted under our feet. My mother reached for the back of a seat. Your company? She whispered. I nodded. Dad tried to speak, stopped, then looked down at his cracked phone like it might offer him a way out. You founded this? He asked. Yes. When? My second year here. His eyebrows pulled together. During your PhD? During my PhD. Jessica stepped back a little, giving us space, but she did not leave. I was grateful for that. Sometimes you need one witness who knows the truth before everyone else is forced to see it. Dad looked around. People were watching now. Not everyone, but enough. A few graduates had their phones out. A father 2 rows behind us whispered my name to his wife, then turned his phone so she could see an article already spreading online. Stanford PhD founder becomes billionaire on graduation day. My mother saw the screen. Her hand went to her mouth. Dad's voice came out lower. Why didn't you tell us? The question was simple. The answer was not. I looked at both of them and felt 6 years press against my ribs. 6 years of calls where I had hidden exhaustion behind cheerful lies. 6 years of explaining less and less because every explanation turned into a warning. 6 years of making myself smaller at the family table so their idea of me could stay comfortable. I tried, I said. Dad blinked. When? Christmas, 2 years ago. I told you my research was getting attention from tech companies. You told me theories don't pay rent. His face tightened. I turned to Mom. Last spring, I told you I might have to travel because a product team wanted to meet about my algorithm. You said I should stop chasing fantasy and think about marriage before it was too late. Her eyes filled at once, but I kept my voice steady. After that, I stopped trying. Dad's jaw moved, but no words came. I did not hide it because I was ashamed, I said. I hid it because I was tired of defending work you had already decided was useless. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. They landed harder because I did not throw them. A woman in a dark blazer appeared at the aisle with 2 university staff members behind her. I recognized her from donor meetings. Elaine Porter, the vice provost for development. She was careful, polished, and usually impossible to surprise. Today, even she looked shaken. Dr. Bennett, she said softly, I am sorry to interrupt. We are trying to move you before the press reaches this section. Dad looked at her. Dr. Bennett, he repeated, as if my title had only become real when someone else used it. Elaine gave him a polite smile. Your daughter is one of the most important graduates Stanford has had in years. My mother closed her eyes. Elaine turned back to me. There is a private room nearby. The president's office would also like to congratulate you before the university releases its statement about the scholarship fund. Dad's face changed again. Scholarship fund? I looked at Elaine, then at my parents. There it was. Another truth they did not know. We can talk inside, I said. We moved through the aisle while the ceremony continued behind us. I could feel people turning as we passed. Phones lifted. Whispers followed. My parents walked close, but not with the authority they had brought down those steps. They looked unsteady now, like guests in a building they thought they owned. The private room was small and cool, with a long table, bottled water, and a screen mounted on the wall. Someone had left a bouquet in the corner. Elaine closed the door behind us, softening the noise from outside. On the screen was a paused business news segment. My face filled half of it. Not the face I saw in the mirror after sleepless nights. Not the face my parents saw across holiday dinners. This was a photo from a university profile, hair pinned back, black blazer, calm expression. Beside it was the Spectrum Analytics logo. Beneath that, a line of text. Founder Alexander Bennett's AI company surges past $7 billion in public debut. My father sat down without being asked. My mother remained standing. Elaine looked at me. They are asking whether you still want the donation announcement held until tonight. Hold it, I said. The ceremony comes first. Dad looked up. Donation? Elaine hesitated, sensing she had stepped into more than a media issue. I answered before she could. Spectrum's foundation is funding scholarships for students who cannot afford graduate research programs. $100 million over the next several years. The room went quiet. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. $100 million? Yes. Dad stared at the table. I could see the calculation happening in his head. Not the math. The memory. All the times he had told me I had no practical sense. All the times he had warned me about debt. All the times he had spoken of money as if I was a child who could not be trusted near it. Elaine's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, then at me. CNBC is outside. So is Bloomberg. Security is holding them back, but not for long. I nodded. I'll give one short statement after the ceremony. Of course. She paused. And Dr. Bennett, congratulations. What you built will change many lives. She left us with the door half closed, then pulled it shut. For the first time all day, there were no cameras, no announcements, no crowd. Just my parents and me. Dad rubbed both hands over his face. I thought you were struggling, he said. I know. I thought you were too proud to admit you needed help. I know. His voice cracked on the next words. I thought I was being firm because that was what a father should do. I watched him carefully. He had always been a man who liked clear answers. Bills paid. Job titles easy to explain. Success you could name at church. He did not understand risk unless it came with a uniform, a pension, and a supervisor. To him, my world had looked like delay because he had never learned how to read it. But ignorance did not erase hurt. You sent that text while I was sitting in my graduation gown, I said. He swallowed. You could have said it yesterday. Or tomorrow. Or never. But you picked today. My mother cried quietly now, no drama, no handkerchief performance. just tears falling while she looked at the floor. "I am so sorry," she said. "I thought I was helping you see reality." "No," I said gently. "You were asking me to live inside yours." She looked at me then. I took out my phone and opened my banking app. Not to boast. Not to punish. Only because truth sometimes needs proof, especially for people who have ignored it for years. I showed them a list of transfers. Dad leaned forward. "What is this?" "Mom's car repair last year." "You thought it was a discount from the mechanic." Mom's face went still. "It was me." I scrolled. Emma's tuition gap. The anonymous payment that kept her enrolled. My father's eyes lowered. "That was you?" "Yes." Another scroll. The mortgage payment you were short on after Dad's hours were cut. The bank called it an adjustment error. Mom sat down slowly. "I did not want you to feel embarrassed," I said. "So I found quiet ways to help." Dad looked like I had struck him. "We were lecturing you about money," he said, "while you were carrying us." I did not answer. Because that was the truth. Not all of it, but enough. His shoulders bent inward, and for the first time in my life, my father looked old to me. Not weak. Just human. A man who had mistaken control for love and pride for wisdom. "I don't know how to apologize for that," he said. "Start by not explaining it away." He nodded once. My mother reached for my hand, then stopped before touching me, as if she finally understood she did not have the right to pull comfort from the person she had wounded. "We made you lonely," she said. That broke something in me. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough that I had to look away. Because yes. They had. Not by leaving, but by standing close and refusing to see me. A knock came at the door. Elaine opened it just enough to look inside. "I am sorry. They need you for the official photo line." After that, the press statement. I wiped under one eye before tears could fall. "I'm ready." Dad stood quickly. "Alexandra." I turned. He looked at me with a grief I had never seen on him before. "I am proud of you," he said. "Not because of the money. I need you to know that. I am proud because you kept going when we made it harder." My throat tightened. I needed to hear that years ago. I know. And hearing it now does not erase everything. I know that too. That was the first honest thing he had said all day. We returned to the edge of the ceremony, where the crowd had become louder and stranger. News vans had gathered outside the gates. Students pointed at their phones. Faculty members shook my hand with sudden urgency, as if success had made me more visible than scholarship ever could. The official photos passed in a blur. Then I stood before a tight crowd of reporters near a shaded walkway. Microphones rose. Camera lights blinked. My parents stood off to the side with Jessica, quiet and pale. A reporter called out first. "Dr. Bennett, how does it feel to become one of the youngest self-made women in tech on the same day you receive your PhD?" I breathed once. "It feels unreal," I said. "But I hope the story is not just about money." Spectrum began as research. It grew because a small team believed technology could solve problems that mattered. Another reporter leaned forward. "Your company's technology is already being discussed in national security, medical imaging, and cloud systems. What comes next?" "Responsibility," I said. "When technology becomes powerful, the people building it have to become more careful, not less." A third voice cut in. Your parents are here today. What did this moment mean for your family? The air shifted. I felt my mother freeze. My father dropped his eyes. The easy answer would have been pretty. The cruel answer would have gone viral. I chose neither. My parents gave me my first idea of discipline, I said. But like many families, we did not always understand each other. Today is not just about achievement. It is also about learning that love without listening can still hurt. The reporters went quiet for half a second. I continued. I hope families watching this let their children explain their dreams before they judge them. That was the line that spread. Not the valuation. Not the contracts. Not the title. That line. By evening, it was everywhere. Love without listening can still hurt. The karma came quietly after that. No one dragged my parents online because I did not name what they had done. But family has its own court. Relatives called. Old friends messaged. People who had heard my parents describe me as still in school and finding herself now sent screenshots of headlines with short, uncomfortable questions. Is this your Alexandra? Did you know? Why didn't you tell us? My father stopped answering after the fourth call. My mother sat beside me in the back of the car as university security drove us away from campus. She kept looking at my hands. Maybe she remembered when those hands were small and covered in crayon. Maybe she was trying to understand when they had become the hands that signed contracts, funded scholarships, and quietly saved family bills. Dad sat in the front, silent. At my apartment, the contrast almost made him flinch. The building was plain. The stairs creaked. My living room had a used couch, 2 bookshelves, and a folding table stacked with research papers. On the wall above my desk was a whiteboard filled with equations, model notes, and one sentence I had written during the hardest year of my life. Build the proof. Let the noise wait. Mom read it twice. You lived here? She asked. Yes. With all that money? I put most of what I had back into the company. Then into the foundation. Dad turned from the whiteboard. Why didn't you buy a better place? I smiled faintly. Because I was busy building one. He nodded, but his eyes were wet. On my desk sat an old framed photo from my undergraduate graduation. My parents stood on either side of me. Dad looked proud in the photo. Mom was smiling like the future had not become complicated yet. I picked it up and set it flat on the desk. Not face down. Just flat. Mom noticed. Do you hate us? She asked. The question was small. No, I said. But I cannot keep pretending the hurt was small just because the ending looks successful. She sat on the couch and covered her face. Dad came closer, then stopped a few feet away. What do we do now? I looked around the room that had held every version of me they never met. The exhausted researcher. The scared founder. The daughter wiring money at midnight. The woman learning that silence could be survival but also a wall. We start over honestly, I said. Not with speeches. Not with pretending you always believed in me. You did not. Dad nodded. You ask before you judge, I said. You listen even when my life does not look familiar. And you never again use love as a reason to make me feel small. Mom whispered, we won't. Dad's voice was rough. Never again. I believed they meant it. I also knew meaning it once was not the same as changing. That night, after they left, the world kept knocking. Interview requests. Investor calls. Messages from classmates. A formal note from the White House asking about an advisory committee. 100 strangers calling me inspiring. 100 others calling me lucky. I turned the phone face down. For the first time all day, the room became quiet. Then one message came through from Dad. I know I failed you today. I failed you before today too. I am proud of the woman you became, and I am sorry I made you become her without feeling seen. I read it 3 times. Then I typed back. Thank you. We will talk tomorrow. Not I forgive you. Not everything is fine. Tomorrow. Because healing, like success, is not one dramatic moment. It is built. Choice by choice. Truth by truth. Day by day. I stood by the window and looked at the city lights beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, reporters were still saying my name. Markets were still measuring my worth. People were still turning my life into a headline. But none of them knew what the real victory was. It was not the $7 billion. It was not the interviews, the contracts, or the building Stanford wanted to name after me. It was the moment my father's lesson died in that aisle. The moment my mother's pity turned into understanding. The moment I stopped shrinking my life to fit inside someone else's fear. For years, they thought I was lost because I walked a road they could not recognize. They thought silence meant failure. They thought struggle meant weakness. They never knew I was building something powerful in the dark. And when the truth finally stepped into the light, I did not need revenge. I only needed them to see. Because sometimes the strongest answer to being underestimated is not anger. It is becoming so undeniable that even the people who doubted you have to stand quietly in front of the life they said you could never build.